Alright, welcome back to the Blender 3 Docwalk. This document is arranging nodes using snapping and the auto offset feature. This is going to be a bit of a unique one, and I'll explain why in a second, so let's jump right in. Alright, let's head over to geometry nodes. It's my favorite. Yeah. And I'm going to just blow this all the way up, hit new. So we've got these two fellas. And we are going to be talking first about the snapping feature. Now you see right up here in the upper right hand corner, there's kind of a little horseshoe magnet shaped icon and a attached drop down. We'll talk about that in 1 second. But this is how you activate snapping. So let's go ahead and activate it. Okay, now your options in the drop down, you'll see grid, node X, node Y, node X/Y. Typically, you would use grid. Grid allows you to snap, keep your nodes snapped to the background grid. You kind of see these little dots in the background, this little grid. That's what you are snapping to. Whatever you have selected, whichever node, as you move around, it will snap and align perfectly to the grid, to the gridded background. Okay, now this is where it's going to get a little weird, a little bizarre. And first, you have to remember that the snapping function is typically used in a 3D viewport. It really is designed to deal with your 3D scenes, your entire three-dimensional scene. And so you'll notice when you click the drop-down menu up here for snapping, there's a lot of features here. You can do incremental snapping, vertices, edges, faces, volume, edge center, edge perpendicular, and you have move, rotate, and scale. However, if we go, let's say we move to a vertex, we now have closest, center, median, and active. The reason I'm showing you this is because when we go back down to our geometry node editor, and I click the snapping drop down, and if I select anything other than grid, node X, node Y, or node X/Y, a secondary drop down will appear and is going to begin with closest. If I click on that, you'll see closest, center, median, and active. These are the exact same options as we just looked at right up here, snap with. Okay, so these options are really designed for the 3D viewport. So I'm going to kind of go over these really quickly, and I'm considering, I don't know, possibly a bug report. We'll see. I'm going to have to talk to a few people and try to figure out what exactly is going on here. I think what is happening is the basic snapping construct has just been implemented here, and most people, being that most people use grid, and grid with the auto offset feature allows you to do a pretty decent job of organizing your node tree. So let's jump into this, and I'll show you why this is kind of weird. Okay, so first things first, we're going to select node X and closest. Okay, so if I'm let's keep that guy. I'm going to bring in a new let's bring in a new vector. Okay, now as I move this guy around, now remember you can also move him around if you hit G, just like in the 3D viewport for grabbing, G for grab. If I hit G, without having to hold my mouse button down, I can move it, anywhere I want. So I'm going to slowly slide it over underneath group input there. And as I get close to it, you'll notice where my cursor is. It has the I guess 4 little arrows, up, down, left, right, and you'll see when I get close and it snaps, it is going to snap the left edge of my vector node, my vector input node, to the left edge of group input. If I continue to move and bring my mouse cursor closer to the right edge, it will do the same thing for the right edges of both nodes. Same thing for this one here and this one here. Okay. All right. Fairly expected behavior, right? Well, let's try center. So I'm going to click this guy, hit G, bring him over here. And now for both of the left and right sides of the group input, it is snapping my vector node's left side to both sides of the group input, which is kind of a little weird. Doesn't make too much sense, but let's see what the next option does. Median, click G for grab, bring it over, and it appears to do the same thing. And just like the previous two, center and median, active also performs exactly the same way. Well, you might think, okay, well then this might be for groups, right? For groups of nodes. If you got a whole kind of cluster of nodes and you want to align them in some certain way, that's probably what this is for. And good thought, but that is not what is happening. So let's duplicate this guy a few times, and let's kind of like, you know, let's really make sure he's scattered around a little bit. I keep blocking onto things. That's good. And okay, there we go. Side note, if I select all of these, highlight all of them, and instead of hitting G for grab, let's say I hit R for rotate. Now in the 3D viewport, we know what rotate does. Here, rotate works a little differently. You can't rotate a single node, but you can rotate a group of nodes. So I'm going to hit R, and this is what rotate does when you have a group of nodes like this. Pretty fancy, not particularly useful, but kind of cool. Likewise, if I hit S for size, it simply spreads them apart. Now this is, in my opinion, a little bit more handy than rotating them, but yeah, so that's what hitting S does when you're here. So I'm going to right click just to reset everything. Actually, I should undo. There we go. Okay. Now, I'm going to activate this one, the middle one, and I'm going to use this one to drag this cluster, through the snapping areas of the other nodes. So here we go. My mouse is getting close. Okay, kind of center-ish, right? Getting to the next one, and it snaps in the same region. Okay, now that's active, and this is the active node, so that would make sense, right? But let's test this theory. Let's activate one of the other nodes. So now this is the active node. Oh, nope. It's still lining up to that kind of, middle vector node. Well, let's jump over to closest and see how closest behaves with a cluster of nodes. Well, okay. That's interesting. So I'm interesting. The nodes alter as I kind of move through. Another thing to be wary of is if you are holding your mouse button down and you pass the border of your area, like I'm doing now, right, of my my node editor, things get a little weirder. But you'll notice now that, see, I'm lining up with the right side of the graph input, and everything has jumped all the way over to the side. This is an artifact of me continuing to hold my left mouse button down and kind of scroll moving my cluster here past the borders of the node editor. So that's an interesting behavior. Now you'll see here it lines up there, but as I kind of shift what's going on, different things happen. So there's no real consistent behavior here. If I come down to center, things get a little bit more fun. Well, depending. It's been an interesting adventure trying to get this all figured out. So, okay, no active node. They're all just selected. All right. So I'm gonna pass the first horizontal thing here. Okay. So you'll notice that is lining up right next to the down arrow of my center vector node. Okay. Come over a little bit more. Right in the same area. Okay, right in the same area here, right in the same area here. If I jump down to median, you'll notice that it's just next to the V now. It's just next to the V. And so median and center are just barely off of each other by that very width between the down arrow here and the V. And this is typical. Whenever you cluster a group, that is where it is going to line up in the centermost node. So I found these to be very strange behaviors. All of these, node Y behaves just like node X, and there are even more surprising behaviors. Now, active, you would assume that whichever one was active. So yeah, like this. If I activate this one and then select these guys, right? We kind of already went over this, but now you see how it just kind of really just doesn't make sense, right? It's definitely not lining up with the active node by any means. Now, I'm going to grab the rest of these guys. Pull them over here a little bit. And we're going to add a group. Or actually, I'm going to add a frame. And I'm going to kind of get all these guys in here. Whoops. That is not what I meant to do. See if I can get that undone. I don't know if I can. Nope, that's done for. Okay, let's get all these fellas in here. All right, now you see it's kind of staying active, right, within my frame. This is where it gets crazy. So I'm going to move my frame. Yeah, look at that. Isn't that interesting? And I have tested this across all the way from the current LTS version to 3.1, and they all do this. This is how they all perform. And some of these, like closest, is just out of control. There's no way to even possibly. Oh, can you even see that? Oh, you may not be able to see that. I'm looking at the video rendering here, and it doesn't look like it's picking up. I'm actually getting 2 frames of my thing. You can see it jumping back and forth a little bit, but I'm actually getting 2 separate frames. It's definitely due to the refresh rate difference and the frame rate of the recorder over here. But you kind of saw how it ripped a little bit. There we go. There's some ripping. Let's see if I can get it to. Anyway, this is consistent over here on my other monitor, 100% consistent. And yeah, these all act just a little bit differently, but it's this one is just vibrating back and forth. Can you see that? Oh wow, crazy! It just must be perfectly lined up with the vibration. Let's see if I can get some ripping going on. There we go. Okay, you see where it. There it goes. See where that frame rip went up, or that V. What is that called? V vertical. Refresh vertical rip hashing. I don't know. But yeah, so this is exactly how it behaves. Now this one is just jumping back and forth. Oh yeah, you can definitely see that one on the. And so I would suggest that you're not. And like I said, this is typical behavior across all of the versions I have tested. I have not tested it on a different machine. So this may be an artifact of how I have my screens set up. But Blender is built for, really intense, complicated multi-screen setups. So I am very cautious to say that it's a system specific sort of an issue. All of my hardware is pretty standard, higher end, commonly used industry sort of hardware, right? So I'm curious about what's happening here. One thing I do know is that I looked everywhere for any sort of answer, and I couldn't find it anywhere. So my guess is that this is typical behavior across all systems, but that nobody has really cared to really use anything other than grid snapping, and so nobody has ever really had seen this. I mean, this goes all the way back to like I said, all the versions I've tested, which is 293 LTS, right? So just kind of bizarre. All right. That being said, I'm going to leave grid snapping on. I'm going to kill this at the old X. All right. Now, if we head over to the view menu and go down, you'll see auto offset, a tick box for auto offset. Turn that off, turns it off, hit it again, and it turns it on. You can also come up to edit, drop down to preferences, and we'll head up to editing. And then if we come down to miscellaneous, open that up, scroll down further, you'll see node auto offset margin, and it is set at 80 pixels. So this is the I guess generated margin for the node you're introducing between the two other nodes. Speaking of which, let's show you how this works. So let's go ahead and Shift A to bring something up. I will just grab something at random here, material selection. Actually, I'm going to drop this guy here really quick, and I'm going to bring these two guys nice and close like that. Now, auto offset helps you keep things organized, and because I already have grid snapping on, let's go ahead and get these nice and even so it's all nice and neat. Now I'm going to grab my material selection, and I'm going to just, even though it really isn't going to match in there, but I'm just going to go ahead and drop it down on the link here. Okay, so I'm going to grab this guy, just drop it down on the link, and you will see that it automatically moved the group output to the right, inserting itself perfectly. Okay, now I'm going to go ahead and do that one more time. So we'll go up to preferences, pull this open, and I'm going to change auto offset the margin to, let's bring it down to 20, and you will see just how much of a difference it makes. So I'm going to go ahead and do the same thing, drop it in there, and you'll notice that much less room, a much smaller margin has been used in the offset. Now notice that group out has been moved over. If you want it to move the other way, if you want the other side to be moved over, you can hit T, or I'm sorry, hold T down while you are dropping it, and it will move, in the other direction. So let's do another little demonstration. Let's bring up another whatnot, just random here, because at this point it really doesn't matter. And I'm going to just drop it down. Well, I'll put it right here. Oops. Yeah, I wasn't holding T down. Okay, let's try that again. So let's grab this guy. G, got him. Okay, now I'm going to be holding T down, dropping him in. And there you go. Everything moved nice and neatly to the left. Okay, so that was arranging nodes. Short, sweet, simple, easy. I will get back to you and make an update video as soon as I know more about the bizarre behaviors of the target snapping behaviors on the 2D surface. I'm a bit reluctant to submit another bug report. I've submitted quite a few since I've started doing this, but I've just found a bunch of crazy stuff, and they've been taking care of things. So I just feel like I'm kind of putting a lot on their plates, especially while they're getting ready for the new release. So I don't know, but yeah. Anyway, so that is it. I will see you guys next time in the nodes editing document. If you found this information useful and you've been enjoying these videos, please like and subscribe, share this with those that you think would benefit from it the most, and I will see you guys in the next video. Bye.